When you pull away, everything shifts. It's not just your absence that affects her. It's the void you leave behind. When a high-value man disappears, the silence speaks louder than any words ever could. She begins to feel emotions she didn't expect, feelings that will forever change her perception of you. Today, we're diving into the 8 powerful emotions she experiences when you simply vanish. These aren't just fleeting thoughts. They're deep, life-altering realizations that make her see you in a completely new light. The first emotion she feels when you disappear is profound shock. But this isn't the kind of shock that fades after a few hours. No, this is a deep, all-encompassing realization that her life has taken an unexpected turn. The air feels thick, the world a little too quiet, and her sense of normalcy is shattered. Your presence wasn't just a passing occurrence in her life. Whether she admitted it or not, it was something she relied on, perhaps more than she realized. She had grown accustomed to the routine interactions, the sound of her phone lighting up with your messages, the sight of your name in her notifications, and the anticipation of your next call or text. Then, in an instant, it's all gone. It's not just the absence of noise that hits her, it's the absence of connection. At first, she might tell herself it's no big deal. Maybe he's just busy, she thinks. But as time passes, the reality sinks in. You've disappeared, and she wasn't prepared for it. This initial shock becomes a mirror, reflecting just how much your presence meant to her, even if she never acknowledged it. The silence disrupts her stability and leaves her world feeling uncertain. Each time her phone stays silent when she expects to hear from you, that shock deepens. It's a jolt that lingers, forcing her to confront the reality that you're gone, and she wasn't ready for it. After the shock fades, another emotion takes its place. A deep craving for validation. This isn't just a passing thought. It's a nagging need to know that she mattered to you. When you were in her life, your attention and energy gave her a sense of validation. Your presence signaled that she was important to someone. But when you disappear, all of that is ripped away. She begins to question herself. Did I really matter to him? Was I just another option? This need for validation consumes her. She starts checking her phone constantly, hoping for a missed message or stalking your social media for clues about what you're doing. She's searching for any proof that she still holds significance in your life. Your silence amplifies her insecurity. The longer you stay away, the more desperate she becomes to fill the void. She might reach out in subtle ways, liking your old posts or sending casual messages, hoping to reopen the door. But if you remain distant, her craving for validation grows stronger, turning into an all-consuming need to feel valued. Once the craving for validation subsides, doubt begins to creep in. Your disappearance forces her to question everything, her choices, words, and actions. She replays every conversation in her mind, picking apart every detail to figure out what went wrong. Did I push him away? Was I too distant? Did I say something I shouldn't have? These questions flood her thoughts, eroding her confidence. Doubt is powerful because it makes her question not just her actions, but also her understanding of the relationship. Did I even know what was really going on? Was I as in control as I thought? Your silence feeds her doubt. Without you to clarify or explain, she's left spinning in circles, unsure of what to do next. This self-questioning chips away at her sense of self, leaving her feeling lost and uncertain. Rejection is one of the most painful emotions she experiences when you disappear. Your absence feels like a choice, a decision to walk away, and that stings deeply. Even if things weren't perfect between you, the fact that you chose to leave feels personal. She begins to wonder, why wasn't I good enough for him to stay? What did I do wrong? Rejection taps into a primal fear of not being loved or valued. In your silence, that fear comes to life. She starts to believe that your absence is a reflection of her flaws or shortcomings. This pain motivates her to act. She might try to reconnect, reaching out to prove her worth or show you that things can be different. But if you remain distant, the sting of rejection only deepens, leaving her questioning her value and place in your life. As she processes the rejection, guilt starts to creep in. She begins to take responsibility for your disappearance, even if the circumstances weren't entirely her fault. Guilt is a tricky emotion because it convinces her that she had more control over the situation than she actually did. What could I have done differently? Could I have been more supportive? Did I push him away without realizing it? These questions play on a loop in her mind, forcing her to revisit every interaction, every conversation, and every decision she made. This guilt becomes consuming. She starts to believe that her actions, or lack thereof, may have driven you away. Small mistakes feel magnified, and moments she once overlooked now feel monumental. Was I too distant? Too demanding? Too vulnerable? What makes guilt especially painful is the helplessness it brings. She might want to make amends, to fix things, and show you that she's learned from her mistakes. But your absence leaves her with no outlet for these feelings. She can't seek forgiveness or clear the air, and this unresolved guilt weighs heavily on her. As guilt settles, a new fear begins to take hold: the fear of being replaced. This is one of the most powerful and painful emotions she experiences after your disappearance. She starts to imagine the possibility that someone else has taken her place in your life. Maybe it's another woman, or perhaps it's your career, hobbies, or newfound independence. Whatever it is, the thought of being replaced consumes her. This fear stems from a deep-seated human need to feel irreplaceable. When you were present in her life, she believed she was special to you, that your connection was unique. But now, that belief is shaken. Was I ever truly important to him? If I was, how could he walk away so easily? She begins to compare herself to others, looking for evidence that someone else has stepped into her role. Social media becomes a minefield. Every new connection, photo, or post feels like a potential confirmation of her worst fear. The idea that someone else might be enjoying your attention and affection is almost unbearable. This fear not only eats away at her confidence, but also fuels her insecurity, driving her to question her worth and value in your life. Regret follows closely on the heels of fear. It's a painful emotion because it's tied to the past, a past she can no longer change. She begins to wish she had done things differently. Why didn't I appreciate him more? Why didn't I say what I truly felt? Why didn't I try harder? Every small mistake becomes magnified in her mind, and every missed opportunity feels monumental. Regret forces her to critically examine the relationship and her role in it. She starts to miss the little things about you. The way you made her laugh, the way you listened, the way you made her feel seen. These memories become bittersweet, filled with the weight of what could have been. The worst part about regret is its isolation. She knows she can't turn back time or fix what's already happened. Without you there to talk to or reconcile with, she's left alone, replaying the past over and over again. After all the pain, doubt, and reflection, she eventually reaches a stage of growth. This is where she begins to process what happened and learn from the experience. Your disappearance wasn't just a loss, it was a lesson. She starts to understand more about herself, what she truly wants in a relationship, and the importance of valuing the people in her life. Growth is a powerful stage because it marks the beginning of her rebuilding process. She takes the lessons learned from your absence and applies them to her future relationships. She might become more attentive, more appreciative, and more intentional about the connections she forms. This growth doesn't mean she's completely over you. The memories and emotions tied to your relationship still linger. But it does mean she's moving forward. She's turning the pain into something meaningful, using it to shape a stronger, more self-aware version of herself. In the end, your disappearance wasn't just an ending, it was a turning point. It became a catalyst for her transformation, leading her to a place of resilience and growth that she might not have reached otherwise. Your disappearance created a ripple effect, one that went far beyond the initial shock of silence. It forced her to face emotions she may never have fully explored before: shock, doubt, rejection, guilt, fear, regret, and ultimately growth. Each of these emotions was a stepping stone in her journey of self-reflection and transformation. While the pain of your absence was profound, it also became an unexpected teacher. It made her confront her insecurities, reevaluate her priorities, and gain clarity about what truly matters in her relationships and her life. The silence you left behind wasn't just an absence of noise. It was a mirror reflecting back to her the areas of her life and self she had overlooked. T showed her how much your presence meant, how deeply she valued the connection you shared, and perhaps how she took it for granted at times. However, the most significant realization she may have had is that she is resilient. Your disappearance was a test, and though it brought her to a breaking point, it also proved that she could rebuild herself, piece by piece. Whether or not she ever hears from you again, she will carry the lessons from this experience into her future. She'll be stronger, wiser, and more intentional about how she navigates relationships. In a way, your absence left a legacy, a painful yet transformative chapter in her story that contributed to her growth as a person. And perhaps, in moments of quiet reflection, she may even feel gratitude, not for the pain you caused, but for the strength and self-awareness it helped her uncover. This is the journey she embarks on when a high-value man disappears. It's not just about losing someone she cared for, it's about rediscovering herself in the process. And while the path is fraught with challenges, it ultimately leads her to a place of renewed clarity, confidence, and purpose. After reaching a stage of growth and self-awareness, the next phase for her is about applying what she has learned. This isn't just about moving forward, it's about transforming the pain into a renewed sense of purpose. She begins to embrace her independence, recognizing that her worth isn't tied to someone else's presence or absence. She learns to find validation from within rather than seeking it externally. This internal shift empowers her to approach future relationships with more clarity and confidence, setting healthy boundaries and communicating her needs effectively. An essential part of her journey involves forgiveness. Not necessarily forgiving you, but forgiving herself. She releases the guilt and regret that once consumed her, understanding that she did the best she could with the knowledge and tools she had at the time. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or excusing the pain, but it allows her to let go of the emotional weight she's been carrying. This act of letting go becomes a turning point, enabling her to fully embrace the lessons of this experience without being tethered to the past. With time, her perspective shifts. What once felt like a devastating loss now feels like a necessary chapter in her story. She might even look back at your disappearance with a sense of clarity, realizing it was a catalyst for growth she didn't know she needed. Her emotional strength deepens, and she becomes more selective about who she allows into her life. She no longer chases after validation or fears rejection because she knows her value. This transformation isn't just about recovering from the pain. It's about thriving despite it. If she could say something to you now, it might not be what you expect. It wouldn't come from a place of anger or desperation, but from a place of understanding and closure. She might thank you, not for leaving, but for unintentionally teaching her resilience and self-reliance. She might wish you well, acknowledging that your paths were meant to diverge. And in doing so, she reclaims her power, demonstrating that her happiness is no longer tied to your presence. The emotions she experienced and the lessons she learned are universal. Her story mirrors the experiences of many who have faced similar situations, reminding us all of the strength we can find in adversity. Your absence was a chapter, but it wasn't the whole story. The life she builds after this becomes her testament to growth, resilience, and the enduring human capacity to transform pain into purpose.